On New Year's, my son gave me a mop. In front of the whole family and said, so I wouldn't forget my place. Everyone burst out laughing, but after the Kremlin chimes struck, I made an announcement. That killed the festive mood for good. Because, hello, my dear listeners. Thank you for stopping by my channel. If you enjoy real-life stories, please subscribe and give this video a like. I always love reading your comments, especially when you write, from which city or country are you listening? Now, get comfortable. Enjoy the listening. December 31st. Outside the kitchen window, large snowflakes fall slowly, almost reluctantly. They settle on the wide spruce branches, on the bathhouse roof, on the garden beds frozen under the winter snow, beds I tended all summer. Inside the house, silence reigns. My everyday silence. It is thick and warm, smelling of yeast dough, pine needles from the Christmas tree in the big room, and a faint trace of smoke from the stove. I am alone. At 82, solitude on ordinary days is not a punishment, it is a blessing. In this silence, I hear myself. I hear the house breathe, the house my late husband Motley and I built brick by brick, log by log. On weekdays, this house is mine. It obeys me, responds to every movement, a floorboard creaks in greeting, the stove hums, purrs like a contented cat. But soon everything will change. Soon the silence will shatter like thin glass. In its place will come noise, clamor, bustle. The family is arriving. My son Radion with his wife Marina, their daughter, my granddaughter Sinechka, and another dozen relatives and friends. 16 people. I cook for everyone. The goose with apples is already browning in the oven. On the cold veranda, the aspic is setting in large enamel bowls. A mountain of Olivier salad, a basin of herring under fur coat, pies with cabbage and potatoes are cooling on embroidered towels. The table in the big room is set with my best tablecloth, the one I embroidered as a girl. I remember every stitch. Sometimes, in this silence, I think my life has split in two. One is calm, measured, mine alone. The other is for them, a life of weekends and holidays. It consists of their loud voices, their requests that sound like demands, their scattered things and dirty dishes I clear from Sunday night into Monday, when they, tired from rest, drive back to the city. A week ago, I accidentally overheard Marina on the phone. I stepped into the hallway for firewood. She was on the porch, smoking her thin cigarette, speaking loudly to a friend without embarrassment. Where else would we go for New Year's? Of course, to the dacha. The old woman has already prepared everything, set the table. It's like a free hotel, only with homemade food. The word old woman stung like a sliver of ice under the skin. Not mom, not Aglaya Denisovna, just old woman, a function, a piece of furniture. I froze behind the door, listened to my heart. It beat once, twice. Steady, calm. I didn't go out, didn't say anything, just quietly returned to the warm kitchen. Why? What would it change? I pretended I hadn't heard. Convinced myself it was all for Sinechka, for my girl, the only one who, arriving here, first hugs me, then runs to check on her favorite apple tree. And then they arrived. The screech of brakes, slamming doors, and into my quiet, warm house burst frosty air and demanding, alien noise. Ma, where are you? Take the guests. That was Radion, my son. He's 55, yet still acts like a boy everyone owes. Aglaya Denisovna, do you have spare slippers? My feet are tired in these boots. That was Marina, already taking charge in the hallway, directing where to put the bags of champagne and store-bought cakes grabbed in a hurry at a gas station. They didn't bring a home with them, they brought a train station. Noise, chaos, hubbub. No one hugged me. They simply pushed me aside like a chair in the way. I silently returned to the kitchen, my territory, my fortress. But even here their voices, laughter, arguments about what music to play reached me. The celebration had begun. I carried dishes to the table, the goose, pies, salads, poured drinks, cleared plates, smiled. I was the hostess, yet felt like a servant. They toasted the outgoing year, health, success, loudly, merrily, clinking glasses over my embroidered tablecloth. I sat at the head of the table, but it was as if I weren't there. I was the backdrop to their holiday, transparent, silent. After several toasts, Radion, flushed from champagne and his own importance, clapped his hands. Now, attention, gifts. Everyone buzzed, perked up. Marina pulled boxes from a bag, handing them out, a sweater for someone, perfume for another. Radion, with a sly grin, stood and approached me. In his hands was something long, clumsily wrapped in gift paper. And this, he paused for everyone to look, this is our main gift for our mom, for the mistress of this house. He handed me the package. It was light, almost weightless. I took it. The paper rustled. I unwrapped it. Inside was a mop, the cheapest kind, garish blue plastic with a dingy white rag. The sort sold in hardware stores for pocket change. It lay on my lap, alien and ugly. The room fell silent for a second. Then Radion announced loudly, so all 16 heard, "This is for you, Mom, so you don't forget your place." He laughed loud, smug. Marina joined in, squealing behind her hand. A cousin snorted, someone smiled awkwardly, looking away. Only Sinechka, sitting across from me, stared at her father. Her face went chalk white, her eyes filled with such horror and shame that for a moment it seemed the spit in the soul was hers, not mine. In that instant, the world changed for me. All the noise at the table, laughter, clinking glasses, suddenly became viscous, distant, muffled through water, then stopped altogether. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears. The warmth from the stove that had warmed my back all evening vanished. I felt cold, not just chilly, but a bone-deep, piercing chill spreading from my chest. They say a heart breaks from pain. Mine didn't break. It froze, contracted into a cold, smooth, heavy stone. And in that ringing silence and icy void inside, something clicked. Loud and final, like a switch in an old fuse box. The light I had kept burning for them all these years, the light of my love, patience, hope, went out. I lifted my eyes from the mop to my son's smiling face. He waited for my reaction, expected embarrassment, a show of offense, then for me to play along with his joke. I smiled back, slowly, very slowly. The smile was tight, stretched over the new frozen lines of my face. "Thank you, Rhodia," I said. My voice was even, almost indifferent. "How thoughtful." I stood, took the plastic mop, and without looking at anyone, walked the length of the room. My movements were unhurried, precise, almost graceful. I reached the corner by the door, carefully leaned the mop against the wall, and returned to the table. Silently. No one laughed anymore. I sat in my place at the head. The holiday noise resumed, but for me it had changed, become flat, two-dimensional, like a picture on an old TV. I saw guests' lips move, heard snatches of laughter, but words no longer formed meaning. They were just sounds, empty shells. I moved among them like a ghost at its own feast. Cousin Semyon held out an empty glass. I took the bottle and silently poured him vodka. His wife reached across for the salad bowl. I slid it closer. I smiled when someone told a joke, nodded when someone raised a toast. My body acted on habit, honed over decades. It knew how to be the hostess, how to please, how to create comfort for others. But I observed it all from the icy silence that had settled in my chest. My eyes were at the table, but I looked through them into the depths of years lived. Years of tireless work, endless winter preserves, scrubbed floors, set tables. I used to think it was love, my sacrifice on the family altar. But after that mop, I understood, it wasn't sacrifice. Sacrifice is valued. This was exploitation. With cold surgical clarity, images surfaced. 3 years ago, I withdrew almost all my burial savings to pay for Radian's car repair. He arrived upset, complaining the shop quoted a fortune. "Mom, you understand, without a car, I'm crippled. Marina and I are counting every kopeck. We're planning a vacation." I understood. I always understood. I gave him the money and spent that winter in my old coat because there was nothing left for a new one. The mop wasn't an insult. It was a diagnosis, precise, merciless. Doctors diagnosed to prescribe treatment. My son, unwittingly, wrote me a prescription. He didn't say anything new, he simply voiced what I had become to them. No longer a mother, grandmother, family head, just a function, a free add-on to the dacha. Cook, cleaner, gardener. The ever-compliant old woman with everything ready. I suddenly remembered Motby clearly. The day we finished building this house. He brought a tiny cedar sapling from the nursery, a thin twig. We planted it by the gate. Motby wiped his hands on his trousers, put an arm around my shoulders, and said, looking at the house, "Aglaya, this sapling is your fortress. Yours. Never let anyone make you a servant in it." The cedar grew into a mighty tree. And I had allowed it. With my own hands, I turned my fortress into an inn and myself into its meek servant. I lifted my eyes from the untouched plate. My gaze swept the table. Marina was bragging about a new blouse to a friend, cashmere, probably expensive. Radayon was animatedly discussing fishing with Semyon, his fancy new rod. I knew how much that rod cost. And the blouse. Together, 40,000 rubles. Every 5th of the month, I went to town, to the Spurbank branch. I withdrew from my account, where my generous widow's pension for Motvy, hero, and medal-bearer, arrived, and where I had saved for decades, exactly 40,000 and transferred it to Radian's card. He called it a pension supplement. "Mom, what do you need a loan? It helps us." They thought I sent crumbs. They didn't know this supplement was their carefree life, the paid-off loan on their foreign car, their Turkey vacation, Marina's boots, Radian's rods. I lived on the remainder, frugally, modestly, as I was used to. I needed nothing alone. This thought no longer hurt. It simply lay as another cold, polished stone in the foundation of my new resolve. Inside me, there was no anger. Anger is hot and bubbling. Everything in me had frozen. Years of swallowed insults, unnoticed labor, all compressed, crystallized into a single, perfectly clear, hard diamond. The diamond of my will. At that moment, my gaze met Sinechka's. She sat across, not eating, not drinking, just looking at me. In her 17-year-old eyes, I saw everything. No pity that humiliates, something else, burning, unchildlike shame for her parents and pure, righteous indignation. She looked as if apologizing for them, for their blindness, their cruelty. That look was the final drop. It confirmed I hadn't lost my mind, that I understood correctly. "Thank you, granddaughter. You saw it all. You understood." That look poured the last measure of steel into me. The wall clock with the cuckoo, Motvy's old one, struck 11:30. Guests stirred, talked about the president's speech, checked if the champagne was chilled. I watched the long second hand inexorably count down the final minutes of the old year. The final minutes of my old life. Tick-tock. Each pendulum swing echoed in my head like a hammer on an anvil. Tick-tock. The year in which I was an old woman departs. Tick-tock. The year in which I become Aglaya Denisovna Belova begins. When the Kremlin chimes sounded on TV, everyone jumped up with glasses, practiced smiles ready. First strike. I stayed seated. Second strike. Slowly, without taking my eyes from the Christmas tree, I took my untouched champagne glass. Third strike. The cold glass burned my fingers. Fourth. Fifth. Sixth. With each strike, my spine straightened, shoulders squared. 10th, 11th, 12th. The room exploded, "Happy New Year!" Hooray! In the cacophony, I rose slowly, fluidly. My back was perfectly straight, chin slightly raised. In my hand, the untouched sparkling wine. Their holiday was over. Mine was beginning. When the noise and congratulations died down, Radion, still glowing from drink and self-satisfaction, turned to me. He swept his hand over the table like a general over his troops. "And now, friends, a word from our head, our matriarch. Mom, you're toast." He winked, still noticing nothing. To him, I was part of the decor, the ritual. The old mother who would say something kind, sentimental, and the fun could continue. I raised my glass higher. Silence fell. All 16, even the tipsiest, turned to me. They waited. "Happy New Year to you all," I said. My voice didn't waver. It rang clear, firm, to my own surprise, very firm. It easily filled the room, everyone heard every word. I've decided to start this year with some changes in my life. I paused briefly, letting the words settle. Polite curiosity appeared on faces. My first New Year's resolution, I looked straight at Radion, concerns my financial health. Rhodia, the monthly transfers I sent you end today. I'm sure you and Marina will manage. My son's smile didn't just vanish, it broke, froze into an ugly, bewildered grimace. He blinked, as if he hadn't heard. Beside him, Marina's mouth fell open, her face elongated. She started to speak, but I didn't let her. I swept my gaze over the guests, now watching with confusion and alarm. My eyes lingered on the mop, standing alone in the corner. My second resolution, I continued in the same calm voice, is to free myself from an unbearable burden. This house and land have become too much for me. Maintaining them alone at my age is hard. So I spoke with a realtor. I lied here, I hadn't spoken to anyone, but my voice held no doubt. The lie sounded like indisputable fact. A developer has shown strong interest. They're ready to buy the land for good money. I've decided to accept. I'll move to a small apartment in town, closer to the clinic. And you all, I looked at my son and daughter-in-law again, have exactly 2 weeks until Old New Year to remove any personal belongings you wish to keep. The room fell into such silence I could almost hear the snow falling outside. Absolute, dead, ringing silence. It lasted maybe 10 seconds, but the entire holiday drowned in it. Then Marina's shriek shattered it. "What? You can't sell my peonies? I planted them for 3 years. The bathhouse. Rhodia, tell her." She clutched my son's sleeve. Radion, white as a sheet, stared at me with wild eyes. He swallowed hard. "Mom, what are you saying? Are you in your right mind? What about your promise to Dad? You swore to keep this house for the family, for me. It's our ancestral nest." His voice cracked with hysterical, whining notes. Guests shifted, whispered, looked away awkwardly. The holiday was dead. On its ruins, a scandal began. Looking at his panic-twisted face, at Marina's eyes wide not with loss of an ancestral nest but of free peonies and sauna, I felt satisfaction, cold, pure, like a sip of ice water in heat. Calmly, I raised the glass to my lips and took a small sip. The bubbles fizzed pleasantly on my tongue. I lowered the glass and looked at my son. "You were absolutely right today, Rhodia. It's very important to know one's place." I paused again, letting him absorb it. This house is my property. This land is my land. The money in my account is my money. So my place is no longer at your service. My place is wherever I decide. And this discussion is closed. I set the glass down and, without looking at anyone, turned and walked slowly to my first-floor room. Behind me, frightened whispers, Marina's screech, "She's lost her mind." Radian's confused muttering. I closed the door. My small room was quiet and cool. I sat on the bed and only then felt my hands tremble, not from fear, but from release. I had done it. I had said it. The stone I had carried in my chest for years cracked, and through the fissure, freedom began to seep in a thin stream. Their holiday was over. For me, it was just beginning. I don't know how long I sat in my room's silence. Outside, a storm raged. First shouts, then pleas. Radion knocked. His voice shifted from indignant to begging, "Mom, open up. Let's talk." "You don't mean it." "Mom, what are you doing?" I didn't answer. I just sat and listened to their world collapse. Guests left quickly, almost sneaking out. No one wanted to witness the family drama. The holiday that started so noisily ended in shameful flight. Soon I heard them packing, not for 2 weeks, but everything. Sounds were angry, hurried, slamming cabinets, things crashing. I caught snatches of their argument. Marina hissed at Radion, "It's your fault with that idiotic mop. You joked too far. Now we'll live on your salary alone." He snapped back, "And who gave the idea? You said she needed to be put in her place." Their fight stirred nothing in me but weary disgust. I sat in my quiet room and listened as they packed their chaos, greed, disrespect. A couple of hours later, the house fell silent. The front door slammed. Snow crunched under tires. They were gone. I left my room. The big hall was chaos, half-eaten food, dirty plates, discarded napkins. Tinsel littered the floor. And in the corner, like a monument to their stupidity, stood the blue mop. I looked at it, and for the first time that evening, a real, living smile touched my lips. I didn't clean anything. I just went to the kitchen, brewed strong time tea, and sat by the window. Outside, dawn was breaking. The first day of the new year. My new year. The following days were filled with silence, my everyday silence. But now it was different. Not just absence of noise, but silence filled with meaning. The silence of freedom. I knew their life without my 40,000 and free dacha was cracking at the seams. I didn't care. I had cut out the tumor, painfully, without anesthesia, but I had cut it out. A few days later, toward evening, a car sounded in the yard again. I tensed for a second, but it wasn't the roar of their imported SUV. It was the quiet purr of old Ziguli. Sinechka climbed the porch steps alone, a small backpack on her shoulders. "Grandma," she said, entering. "Can I stay with you a while?" She hugged me tight, and I felt the last bit of ice in my soul thaw. We sat in the kitchen, drinking tea. She said home was hell. Her parents fought non-stop, blaming each other. They had to sell the car to cover urgent debts. The summer seaside vacation was cancelled. They're panicking. Dad keeps saying it's his inheritance, that you robbed him of it. She stared into her cup. But he's wrong. It was never his. It was always your life. I took her hand. "No, Sonia, my dear," I said softly. "I'm just taking it back." The next week, I began to act. I didn't move anywhere, of course. The idea of selling the house was just the scalpel for the operation. But changes started. With the money I no longer sent my son, I hired Stepan, a strong, quiet man from the village. He fixed the leaking veranda roof, repaired the fence, chopped enough firewood for the whole winter. I paid him, and he did honest work. Then I called my old friend Lydia. We'd been friends since university. She was a widow too, living alone in a cramped city apartment. "Lida," I said into the phone, "why not move in with me? Plenty of space, fresh air. We'll meet old age together, tend the garden, drink tea on the veranda." She was silent a minute, then cried and agreed. A month later, she moved in. The house came alive again, but it was a different life, calm, respectful. We cooked together, read books, walked the snowy garden. I also bought myself one thing, a small silver bell with a clear, pure ring. I placed it on the kitchen table. When Lita was in the garden and I needed her, I rang it lightly. It was the sound of a polite request, not the demand for slave labor that the mop had symbolized. Summer came. The dacha drowned in flowers. Marina's peonies, which she never came to claim, bloomed lush and brazen, as if nothing had happened. But now I tended them for myself, for my joy. One June day, Sonia visited again. We went to the garden. I showed her how to tie up a climbing rose, a rare variety I'd managed to grow. The air was thick with flower scent and bees. On the veranda stood a new professional easel with a large canvas, my gift to Sinechka for finishing the school year. She painted our garden, and it turned out stunningly beautiful. That ugly blue mop had long vanished from the house. Stepan burned it in the stove on his first day. Sonia painted, Lita dozed in the rocking chair on the veranda, and I looked at my blooming, well-kept garden, my house filled with quiet light and peace. I thought how my son's cruel gift was actually a key. It didn't show me my place, it opened the door to the rest of my life. A life where I am no longer a servant or a function. I am the mistress of my house, my fate, my quiet, flowering kingdom. And this peace, this silence ringing with happiness, became possible only because one New Year's night, I found the strength to reclaim my own voice. Thank you for staying with me to the end. If this story touched you, please give it a like and write in the comments whether you or your loved ones have faced similar disrespect. Your opinion means a lot to me. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. Be healthy, value yourself, and live for real.